We're talking Miami Redhawks today here on Sharpen the Point. 2024, 9-5 record, much of the same, everything we come to expect under Chuck Martin in his 12th season. Quarterback-wise, we get a new face. It's a big loss of Brett Gabbert. Gabbert was a quality player, but we're quickly going to forget about him leaving at this point when Daquan Finn comes in. He returns to the MAC after a down season at Baylor, something that we had hoped he would be able to step up to the plate at a P4 job, but he was a difference maker at Toledo. He led him to a MAC title in 2022. 2023 he was the MAC Player of the Year. The system is going to be flat out built around his strengths as a dual threat, having amassed over 7,000 passing yards and nearly 2,000 rushing yards in his time at Toledo, and he just found the end zone consistently. Henry Hessen, he's going to be the backup. The hope is we don't end up seeing him this season. But fact remains, Finn got banged up his last year at Toledo more than once, and that kind of led to the emergence of Tucker Gleason. We've seen him dominate the MAC over the last year, and you got to have a little bit of confidence in the backup when you have a Daquan Finn there, but Daquan Finn is a flat-out difference maker. Running back-wise, Jordan Brunson, he's got breakout potential replacing Keon Mosey. Mosey was a hyper-talented back. He just never really found the end zone, but him yardage-wise was absurd, just racking up 100-yard games over and over. Brunson's a big back, capable of handling a heavy workload, especially in the red zone, something that Mosey did not excel at, which is going to give you a real nice 1-2 punch with Brunson's physicality compared with Finn's capability to get to the edge and mow down those smaller DBs. Kenny Tracy's going to be somebody who factors in. He missed all of last season with injury. He's going to return. I expect him to split some work with Brunson, specifically between the 20s, not necessarily the red zone, but that split's definitely going to favor Brunson as the bigger physical back himself. Pass catching wise, it's ugly a little bit out the gate. We don't know what we're going to have, but you lose Javon Tracy to Minnesota. You lose Reggie Virgil to Texas Tech. Both were just absolutely electric a year ago. They were the top two threats on the outside in a real quality passing game. It really was hyper-focused on those two, and they were a wonderful dynamic 1-2 punch. They're going to hope that some of these 4-star recruits that they brought in, Deion Colsey comes from Notre Dame, Cordell Russell, highly talented guy out of Colorado, along with Keith Reynolds, who comes from Washington, and Brady Simmons from Indiana can take a leap. The timing and the connection with Finn himself has improved immensely over the spring. I personally expect Colsey to be that top target, that go-to guy, and he's the one I'm most confident in. Colsey's battling for that one spot, and that one spot is big for fantasy. He averaged 26.7% of the targets typically go to the wide receiver one in this system, and he has showed tons of flashes at Notre Dame to be an explosive weapon. The combination of him and Daquan Finn, if they are to get on the same page, could be absolutely electric. Cole Weaver has returned. He has established good chemistry with Finn in the spring, and at 6'5", he could be someone that Finn trusts to catch those 50-50 balls when he needs to get rid of it in contested catch situations. He can also be a nice red zone threat of somebody that you can hit those high point fades to and utilize him in the red area so that they're not just a run-based team in that situation, albeit Finn is extremely proficient at finding the end zone himself and calling his own number, while Brunson is going to add that physical capability down there. So you'd expect that they're able to convert a lot of opportunities in the red zone into touchdowns. Tight end, not really going to be a receiving impact there. I expect it to mainly just be a blocking position with a lot of emphasis on these wide receivers that are hyper talented. The O-line, the interior of the line is all gone. Left tackle is going to head to Texas Tech and Will Jados. The additions of Austin Uke from Stanford and Peyton Kirkland from Colorado are going to be extremely important to this offensive line being able to gel together. They need to build chemistry early on, as that's going to be a key for the rest of the weapons to be able to maximize themselves because they are very good at the skill positions. It's just a question of can this offensive line hold up well enough so that they can reach the ceiling potential that they have. They looked good in the spring protecting the quarterback, but I do expect this to be the weakest unit on the offense, specifically in the run blocking area. They need to be able to create some lanes so that Brunson can get north-south. They looked good overall, but Finn is going to help mitigate some of those pass issues, those pass blocking issues that they might have early on in the season by being so mobile and elusive and being able to extend plays to allow these weapons to get open down the field. Like we said, Weaver, Colsey, they're going to be massively important to the success of this offense along with Brunson. On the defense, 3D linemen graduate, 2 linebackers graduate from a just absolutely unreal good defense that only allowed 19 points per game a year ago. Matt Salopek and Ty Wise are the major losses at linebacker. Brian Rugwu and Corey Suttle are the big losses along the defensive line. Stopping the run is going to be a key to how successful this defense can be with the turned over defensive line. I trust this coaching staff to be able to do it over the course of the season. It's just a question of whether they can make that impact early in the season, because that's going to have a heavy influence on how far this team can go. Nasir Washington is going to be a key piece along the defensive line. He's going to need to step up and miss that missing production that they lose, specifically out of Ugwu. He was close with Ugwu. They roomed together, and so the hope is that he has picked up some of those skill set that he applied on the field in order to translate in such a good season a year ago. They have good size along the defensive line. I just wonder if they can stand up to the run game and apply pressure to the quarterback. They need to get after the quarterback in order to reach the ceiling of where they can go. Linebacker Corbin Handrew will lead the way. He had 3 interceptions a year ago. He was one of the keys to that defense, and he's going to need to pick up the mantle because Salopek and Wise were absolutely unreal good a year ago. And combining him with Adam Trick returning, he had 4 sacks, and he has more room to grow off of that. He's going to have to provide a heavy presence off the edge, playing as like an off-ball rush end. The second level is by far and away the strength of this defense. The back 7, comparatively to that defensive line. Rayon Strader goes to Auburn. That's going to hurt as a cornerback-wise. But safety Silas Walters, who was a second on the team in tackles with 95, he's going to return, and that gives them impact players at all 3 levels if you consider Adam Trick to be a part of that defensive line front area, which I do because of his pass rushing capability. So Trick, Handrew, Walters are going to be your keys to all 3 levels of this defense. Secondary is mostly intact compared to a year ago, and we can have confidence and stability, especially with Walters and Blakey returning to man both safety positions, which is going to give you that coverage over the top and that ability to limit the big play potential as they will play mop-up duty on anything that breaks out. Just looking at the schedule and the outlook for the season, nearly a third of the roster is new, but so are many of the other G5 programs. We've come to expect that. They're grooming levels at this point to go to the P4. It's just the norm at this point. Almost all of the starters on offense are gone, and half of the defense, which is just an absolute massive amount of turnover in this situation, albeit this team can and should and will compete for a MAC championship this season. Getting these new players on the same page is going to be a key, specifically the quarterback and the wide receivers, along with the run blocking and the rush defense. Those are your keys to this season. At Wisconsin's down right now. Finn is going to have to come in, put the team on his back, and make plays. They can win that game with this coaching staff and the playmakers they have. It's a tough matchup, but it's winnable. Then they head to Rutgers. I would not feel confident there. Your hope is you're 1-1 coming out of that game. 0-2 is still fine. You still can reach all of everything you hope to reach at 0-2, but 1-1, is going to give you so much of a lift going into the next portion of the schedule. UNLV, there's question marks as to how good they can be with Dan Mullen right away. Haj Malik Williams is going to be a tough guy to contain, specifically if the run defense is struggling out the gate with those two matchups. You do not want to be 0-3 coming out of that. But you do get a soft landing spot with Lindenwood. You're absolutely going to torch them and have no worries there. That's a good win. Get you back on the winning ways. Get the mind right before you face Northern Illinois. Going to Northern Illinois is a tough game. Finn's going to be the difference maker in that game. I think his passing capability, he showed it. It will be the difference as far as being able to win that game. You go to Akron. That's a win. You're better, period, end of story. Eastern Michigan, tough game at home. You lean win there. Western Michigan, tough team again, but that's a winnable game. At Ohio, extremely tough game. That's a coin flip. That's a contender for MAC Game of the Year, but you've got really the MAC Game of the Year is the next week. You get Toledo. And at home, facing Toledo, the Daquan Finn revenge game, as much as it can be, but we're going to hype it that way. That's the MACtion Game of the Year for me. I am so looking forward to that. I mentioned it in the Toledo preview. I can't wait to sit down on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and watch that game. That's going to be absolutely electric. I just hope the weather is great because we want to see that one play out in its full glory. At Buffalo, it's a tough place to play late in the year. They're a solid team, but Finn is better, and this team is better flat out than Buffalo. Ball State should be able to handle it pretty easily. Looking at it, it's a well-coached team year in and year out, and the difference maker behind center is going to be Daquan Finn. This offense will be built for him to succeed and to be relied upon. He's led teams to the MAC title before. I don't expect anything different from him. I was a big fan of him at Toledo. I'm going to stay a big fan of him here. The one problem I have is this is about as tough of a schedule as you could get with the two Big Ten teams leading off, a good UNLV team, and just a murderer's row of games in the MAC being played here. This team is going to be battle-tested throughout the season, and if things fall right for them, they will have fully earned everything they achieved this season. Anywhere from 6 to 10 wins is not a shock to me, given the schedule itself. If they finish with 6, that meant all the coin flips and everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong. But 10 is going to be a highly impressive given the schedule. I would say anything in that 8 to 10 range would be a successful season you would be happy with, specifically if you make that MAC title game. Again, Daquan Finn, welcome back.